I find myself asking this over and over as this offseason progresses, and as we're probably going to get some answers a little bit during spring practice. But before this actually starts in a few weeks here, who's going to be Georgia's best offensive weapon? All right, their two best are gone. Their three best, probably, if we're being completely honest, in Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. I think Kendall Milton turned out to be the third best offensive weapon on Georgia as 2023 went on. A guy that finally got healthier and showed us what we've been waiting on for 4 years to see with Kendall. So none of those guys are there anymore. Brock Bowers not only was the best weapon, he was one of the best weapons in college football for the last 3 seasons. So huge loss. Huge loss. Ladd McConkey is going to, look, he's a huge loss too. And your supplementary weapons also, they're bigger losses than you would think. I think that it was obvious how much Kenny McIntosh was missed in 2023, right? And I think I came on here and told you guys, look, this is going to be one of Georgia's biggest issues next year is missing out on having a guy like Kenny McIntosh. 3-ish names come to mind, and I've got the guy. I'm going to talk about the other 2 or 3 first, and then I want to talk a little bit about the player that I think should, right, in my opinion, should be Georgia's best weapon for Carson Beck to facilitate the football to next season. Ryan Curley from Dawg here. Talking about Georgia's offensive weapons, real quick before I give you my little list, I'm linking the newsletter down below. You want to be on our mailing list. You want to be on our email list. That's what you want to be if you want to be an elite Georgia Bulldog fan. We're going to push out free, premium, insider stories, all that good stuff into your inbox every single day. All you got to do is give us your email address and that link that is down below. I think Trevor Etienne is a guy that could end up being Georgia's best weapon, a proven running back in the SEC, a guy that's put up like around 1,500 rushing yards over the course of the last 2 seasons, about 750-ish each of these seasons, solid yard per carry. Obviously, like I said, kind of to reiterate what I said just a couple of minutes or just a couple of seconds ago, a guy that has experience in this league, and now he'll be running behind who I think is probably the best offensive line in college football, if not one of the best, and that's been the case for Georgia in recent years. So with Etienne, he's going to be going from an offensive situation in Florida to the offensive situation at Georgia, which is very loaded, and it's part of the reason why we can have this conversation and why it's even a question. The other part, obviously, because people have left the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Etienne, Georgia hasn't had like a lead back like Swift, I suppose, is the last time they had a true lead back. Zamir White, I feel like he split the load, and then you can look at the numbers. It backs me up, but that's not what this is about, so I don't have those pulled up. But Zamir White was definitely the lead back when he was in town, but the way that they used James Cook was those guys complemented each other very well. So with Etienne, it kind of seems like he's going to be this lead horse. I don't really know who's going to end up being the RB2 or one of the freshmen going to step up. Is it going to be Roderick Robinson? I think that, look, I've got to think about Roderick Robinson. I think if he shed like 10 pounds, he'd be a much better running back. My opinion, I don't know if he's at the weight that Georgia wants him to be or not. That's a little bit more speculation than anything else. But Roderick Robinson's a guy that I think can rotate in there with Trevor Etienne, with Little Etienne, whatever you want to call him. But he's going to, I think he could be 1,000-yard back. I mean, Daijun Edwards was almost a 900-yard back this past season, splitting the load. And let me pull that up actually again. Rushing yards. Milton ended up with almost 800, and Edwards ended up with almost 900. So between them, there's math is not working for me right now, but there's about 1,700 yards on the ground to make up for right there. So is it, how much of that is going to come from Trevor Etienne? Roderick Robinson was the third lead back with 196 yards. But I think Etienne, the opportunity is there, right? So I think he's one of the guys that could be Georgia's best offensive weapon, but that's not my prediction. I wanted to talk about a transfer player, and then a guy that's been on the team. Another transfer. If it is a transfer from this cycle, I'm starting to lean London Humphreys a little bit more than Kobe Young. Just from what I've watched, I think that either of them, this is kind of a both of them, one of those transfer receivers, there's a reason why they went out and got him. And I think that they're going to make an impact. Is it going to be an impact that maybe Dominic Lovett and RaRa Thomas made. I think it could be in a similar capacity where they weren't the lead weapons, but they obviously mattered and were roped in. And being in the system matters as well. So I don't really love saying that it could be London Humphreys or Kobe White. I don't think it'll be Michael Jackson III. I don't think that he'll crack the depth chart the way that the other two guys might. And we know that Georgia likes to play a lot of different wide receivers. It's part of the reason why they don't have elite years in terms of yardage and why elite receivers don't always come to Georgia. I get it. I understand. But London Humphreys, super speedster. And they've got one in Arian Smith. And they've got, Carson Beck and Arian Smith have been playing catch for the last few years together. But London Humphreys, tall guy, played in the league, made an impact in the league. Arian Smith, as long as he's been around, really, his numbers just aren't good, right? His production isn't there. He's had a couple key moments that were huge, and I referenced the Peach Bowl, obviously, but I think London Humphreys, if not, it could be Kobe Young. Remember when Lawrence Cager came in and made an immediate impact and was a good 1-2 punch with George Pickens? I don't think it'll be like that just because I think Georgia's got more talent on its offense, but I lean towards London Humphreys is going to be one of those guys. Next, I kind of think RaRa Thomas given the chance. He's not my prediction. He's kind of my runner-up. I think RaRa Thomas might have a good year. I really liked what I saw out of him last season. I think that he got better as the year went on. He only finished with, let's see here. He didn't have a lot of production, 23 catches for 383 and that one touchdown, but look, Carson Beck, when RaRa Thomas made that really sick touchdown catch towards the end of the year in that Ole Miss game, when Carson Beck threw that ball, he talked about how he didn't even think about it. He had 100% confidence that he was going to go out there and get it. So RaRa Thomas is a guy that obviously showed a little bit of chemistry immediately, did not have the production that Dominic Lovett had, and I'm leaving him off this list. Is that a mistake? Georgia's second leading receiver last year? Is that a mistake that I'm leaving him off this list? Maybe I'll be dumb for that. But I've got this weird feeling about RaRa Thomas. Now, I think Dominic Lovett will be really good. But to me, he's kind of like, I just feel like he'll end up being the secondary receiver. End up being the secondary receiver. And I think that RaRa Thomas, an X-receiver on the outside, is something that they kind of haven't had an elite guy since George Pickens. I think RaRa can have a good year. My prediction, though, who's Georgia's best offensive weapon if you hung around with me? I think it's going to be Dillon Bell. He's the most versatile. He's a guy who they want the ball in his hands. Whether good things happen or didn't, right? They want the ball in his hands. And that was evident in the SEC Championship game when they tried to do an end-around run to him, and then ended up fumbling. But you look at the Tennessee game, wow, they trust him to throw the ball. They trust him to run the ball. They trust him to catch the ball. He is fast. He is dynamic. He's shifty. I think he's probably a little bit stronger than people realize. His production last year obviously wasn't elite. He ends up being the, 6th receiver, not in terms of catches, but in terms of yards. 355 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had more catches but fewer yards than RaRa Thomas last year. But Dillon Bell, he'll now be year 3. He'll be a little bit older. He'll have some chemistry with Carson Beck. It just you see the way he's out there mossing guys against Florida State. You see the way that he can put people on the skates. You see the way that he can run the football. I mean, there was a certain point in September where Matt Dean and myself were having a serious conversation about whether or not Dillon Bell was the best receiver. I have it on Do Not Disturb. I can't believe that happened. That Dillon Bell was the best runner for Georgia. There was a legitimate question there for a minute when Dejan Edwards wasn't healthy, Kendall Milton wasn't healthy, and they were feeding Dillon Bell out of the backfield. We were legitimately questioning whether or not should he just be the lead back. Obviously, you need to get the ball in Dillon Bell's hands until Milton and Edwards are healthy. Should he just be the lead back? So I think it's Dillon Bell. Go watch the Tennessee tape. Go watch a little bit of what he did against Florida, right? Had a really nice play there. Go watch him at the beginning of the year in September when they were feeding him out of the backfield. I just think Dillon Bell is their most dynamic player on offense, and I think you need to feed those players. You know what Kirby said about him? The NFL looks for players like Dillon Bell. Well, guess what? The NFL looks for players like Brock Bowers, looks for players like Ladd McConkey, and those are the guys that are going to the NFL are possible top 5 picks, possible first-round picks. Dillon Bell has first-round potential. Call me crazy, but he does. And whether it's this year or next year, that's something I think is on the table for Dillon Bell from a talent standpoint. I think that he could be that good. I think that he is the guy that replaces Ladd McConkey as your number one wide receiver. Obviously, Brock Bowers is a little bit of a different story. But those are the handful of guys that I think might be Georgia's best offensive weapon. And I'm leaning towards Dillon Bell right now. But the idea of it being RaRa Thomas or Dominic Lovett, I think, makes a lot of sense as well. Maybe it won't be a transfer guy. I talked about a few transfer guys on this list. Thank you for watching. Link is down below for the newsletter. Happy Super Bowl Sunday, by the way.